Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey is always top shelf. Whether you got your start as a Dynasty veteran, a Millbury survivor, or you were born into the Church of Trotz, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, here are your eclectic hosts, Sean Cuthbert and Christian Arnold.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Friday, February 5th, 2021. Coming at you live from the Hockey Night in New York studios on Long Island. Another big show coming up for you tonight. A little bit of a layoff here for the Islanders, but we still got plenty to talk about. Mollie Walker from New York Post will be joining us. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is this clown right here, Christian Arnold. Christian, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great now that you turned our microphones on, so we're off to a banging start.
Yes, we are. It's always fun here. Always fun here at Hockey Night in New York. So, folks, before we get started, I want to remind you all that we are sponsored by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Please head on over for great food, great people, great service. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. And also, we are sponsored by TIE Technology, a voice-over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. If you are tired of dealing with long hold times and the impersonal service of companies like Spectrum, Optimum, and Verizon, give TIE Technology a call at 516-856-7800 for 3 free months of service. So, Christian, the Islanders went undefeated this week.
Well, yes, by default, I guess you could say.
They were also winless. Thanks to some...
Depends on how you want to spin that.
Right. Thanks to some COVID protocol issues that had to do a little bit with the Buffalo Sabres, a little bit with the New Jersey Devils. But it afforded the Islanders to get some practice time in, maybe at a much-needed time, given the fact that they went on that 5-game road trip and came up empty, aside from those 2 little points they got in Philadelphia. So let's get into it. What do you say, CA?
Well, certainly the Islanders, I think, are benefiting from a situation that really, I think, was mishandled by the National Hockey League when you look at what happened over the course of the last week or so. It starts last weekend while the Islanders were battling the Flyers in Philadelphia. It started in Buffalo with the Devils, the New Jersey Devils, and the Buffalo Sabres playing a pair of games when the Devils apparently had players that started to I guess needed to be moved away and go under protocol or whatnot, and it turned into an all-out outbreak on the New Jersey Devil roster. Or at least what I should say is there's a number of players that have tested positive. There's an even larger number of players that are on the COVID protocol list. Now, you can be on the protocol list without actually testing positive for symptoms, going through the contact tracing, going through different variables that will get you on there. Doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are positive for COVID-19, but certainly not a great look. And then the Buffalo Sabres, who have to delay their flight from Buffalo to Long Island on Monday because of the snowstorm. They were planning to travel on Tuesday. Luckily, they didn't travel. The league said, all right, you're not going to New York. That game is canceled. We got to continue the contact tracing. We got to make sure everyone's results come back. And now they have 2 players on the COVID protocol list, and I believe one player has actually tested positive on the Buffalo Sabres roster. So it has gotten pretty bad over with those 2 teams for the last week or so. And obviously Buffalo was royally pissed off because they saw that. According to reports in the Buffalo News, according to reports from The Athletic, they had requested additional information from the National Hockey League and the New Jersey Devils, and no one gave them that information. So of the situation, and we talked and we've praised the National Hockey League for the way they've handled this so far. Yeah. I mean, this is just a bad look. I don't know how you let this happen. Now you have 4 teams right now, or 5 teams. I think Colorado just announced today that they were pausing their season. So 5 teams, if I'm not mistaken, including New Jersey, including Buffalo, that are now going through or now have their season paused because of COVID-related issues. And the Islanders, at the very least, in this circumstance, are benefiting from the fact that they've had a week to work on their game. They've had a couple off days. They've had a couple practice days that they weren't planning on having. So it certainly gives them some time to regroup and get ready for Pittsburgh. But at the same time, the Islanders were starting to get their groove a little bit in Philadelphia. Now, you didn't come away with 2 points in either one of those games. You came away with 2 points from the 2 games combined. But there was a little bit of a groove they were getting in. There were some positives that you saw, not a lot, but there were some positives that you saw and you would like to have seen them build upon coming back to Long Island and playing Buffalo. But now there's a pause, so it's an interesting kind of conundrum. Did they benefit really, or did they kind of hurt from it because it kind of stifles that rhythm they were getting into?
Right. Well, the answer to that question is however they end up coming out of the gate here when they start with Pittsburgh tomorrow. If they put a couple of wins together, the answer will be, it did them good. And if they end up losing a couple more games, the break was terrible for them. I mean, that's always how it goes. It's always, revisionist history. You know what I mean?
But I think historically with the New York Islanders, I think when you go back, even when they implemented the bye week, when you look back and you look when they've had kind of these extended breaks, they kind of lose the momentum. The Islanders have always kind of historically been a team that benefits from playing pretty regularly.
Not in recent history. I mean, if the pause before the return to play did anybody any favors, it was the Islanders.
That's a big difference. I mean, the pause before the return to play is like comparing apples to the potatoes that you use at McDonald's.
I believe the correct phrase is apples to oranges.
No, but that's the point. It's such a drastic
it's not
difference.
Even a fruit.
It's so drastically different. Yes.
That's what you're trying to do here. Oh, okay, got it.
It's so drastically different that
you good?
Yeah. I was trying to internalize all the
gather your thoughts. You're back in the studio now too, so I get it. It's all very intimidating. I want to go back to
my hotel room and away from you. No, so it's such a drastic difference that because the layoff, everybody was laid off, basically. There was no one out there practicing, really. There was no one really getting the chance to play.
Guys like Pellet got healthy,
right,
stuff like that.
You had a lot of different factors playing into it. The break when you're in the middle of a season and there's not, it's just a quick break, and then you go right back to playing. You're the team that kind of loses the momentum. In this case, the Islanders. The Islanders are the team that loses the momentum because they have constantly been a team or consistently been a team that really likes to play a pretty consistent basis on a consistent basis where they get into a rhythm and they can kind of translate that game in and game out when they're playing consistently.
Well, look, I'm not glad that any teams ended up having to cancel or postpone games because of the COVID protocols. I'm not glad that anybody tested positive.
Right.
But I am glad that the Islanders got the break. Because I do think that they needed it. You can talk about whatever momentum they might have been building in those last two games, but I think that they just needed you okay?
Yeah. This is breaking things. I'm back. I'm breaking things. It's chaos.
I think they just needed an overall breather from just that inconsistent play that we had talked about so much last week amongst ourselves with Shannon Hogan. And I think they just needed to kind of reset and say, hey, guys, it's not going to come easy.
Right.
Whatever mentality they were in the return to play, it worked. And I overuse this phrase now, the well-oiled machine, but that's really what they were.
Right.
And clearly the gears aren't turning like they were back then. And so they, you would like to have thought the training camp would have done enough for them. It clearly didn't. We thought it would because of the game one against the Rangers. They looked great.
I mean, I think that was the case with a lot of teams. Everyone was kind of unsure of how things were going to look once you hit the ice, between dealing with all the off-ice issues, dealing with getting ready and getting back into game shape, just dealing with the fact that training camp looked so different.
And whether it's a 56-game season or an 82-game season, the first 10 or so games aren't going to be indicative of what the season's going to be. Right. And that's for teams that are, hot out of the gate, and that's for teams that are struggling. It's just there's just that feeling out period, whether it's guys getting their legs back, whether it's coaches like Barry Trotz figuring out their, regular lineup, which he's still doing. We'll talk more about that too. But, I think this break is good because, look, I don't know when and how the power play is going to click. You can work on it so many times, but obviously that's still a bit of an issue here. It's still mediocre at best. But, Barry Trotz did mention that they did emphasize putting some time during this break on special teams and on the power play. So hopefully we see something out of that. But I'm pro break right now. Talk to me in a week, and we'll see how well it did them after we see some results of these games. But I'm good on it. So
I mean, I don't disagree too, and to your point as well. I mean, I feel like I'm more in the middle. I'd like to see how this transpires. I'm not taking a hard stance one way or the other.
Okay,
which is terrible.
I am firmly pro break.
Which is terrible if you're trying to do a podcast, because we should have firm opinions and
like mine.
Yeah, bombastic takes. But we don't really do
bombastic. We don't do bombastic.
No, we really don't.
No,
but I think there is something to be said. That Barry Trotz now kind of he was talking about finding more consistency in his lineup. He's now kind of doubling down on that the other day when he was saying he wants to have 3 and 2/3 lines and then be able to rotate one guy out in and out when he can. So seeing more of that lineup consistency is going to be great. We talked about it a lot last show as well. But now you get that extra week to kind of do do that in addition to work on the special teams and in addition to work on, just getting guys back in the right mindset. And I know someone in the chat, by the way, thank you to everyone who's joining us tonight.
Yes, Friday night.
Live on
Appreciate you guys hanging out with us on a Friday.
Watching us on twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY.
That's right.
And someone did ask, and what momentum was I talking about? Well, yeah, the Islanders lost those 2 games in Philadelphia, but that was probably the best we saw them in that 5-game span during that road trip. Maybe parts of that game in Washington. That was really about it. That was probably the better half of that road trip. And I realize that's not saying much, but even the slightest momentum could go a long way to kind of get these guys back on track. And Buffalo was an opportunity to do that. They get a couple extra days, and now you get that chance with Pittsburgh, which will be an interesting matchup on Saturday night at the Nassau Coliseum. Of course, I don't want to say the red hot Rangers, but the Rangers, who are kind of turning their season around a little bit after some dressing room chaos themselves.
Yes, I believe we may talk to Mollie Walker a little bit about that when she joins us in a little while. Christian, not to put you on the spot here, but I know that there's some new COVID protocols as a result of all this stuff. Do you happen to know what they are?
So what we're seeing now is, and you'll notice it on that first game at Nassau Coliseum on Saturday, they're taking the glass out behind the bench.
That's going to be weird.
It'll be very strange.
Yeah.
The idea is that they want to create more airflow, so that guys, that the air that they're all breathing on the bench isn't necessarily infecting anyone. If anyone has COVID or any symptoms or anything like that, it kind of protects them in that way. That's the idea anyway.
Opens the air up a little bit.
Yeah,
back
I'm
there.
not a
Sure.
medical professional, but that's this is what they come up with assistance from their
At least
medical
they're being
team.
proactive about it, whatever it may do.
They're planning on, I think, asking players to limit the amount of time they spend in preparation at the arena. They don't want players to arrive earlier than an hour 45 or hour and a half.
And I think they have to do
time.
any pregame meetings now.
Everything's
via
virtually.
Call, yeah.
Yeah, everything's virtual on Zoom, which is how all these teams are communicating, especially in the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, that they prepared for their season before training camps open. They were doing all their meetings through Zoom. The Islanders and the rest of the NHL kind of will follow suit in that sense, that all those meetings will take place virtually. They're planning, I think they're looking into putting some sort of air filtration system on the bench, a portable air filtration system on the bench.
Yes.
To help with that airflow issue. So there are changes that they're making, that they're trying. Again, give them credit. They're trying to be proactive, I guess. Maybe they could have been a little more proactive before you had 5 teams pause their entire season. So, there's that to be said. But they're, I guess, being proactive at this point. I know some of the players don't necessarily love the idea of not being able to show up that earlier for games
it'll mess
like
with
that.
their routine a little bit.
Messes their routine. It messes up some of their ability to get some workouts in and whatnot. So there has been some pushback from the league. I know from what I understand, there's reportedly been some talks, or there's going to be some talks between the PA and the NHL about trying to readjust that aspect of some of their new protocols, because in fairness, that really does mess with a lot of teams and a lot of players, especially on a game day where everyone's so regimented.
Indeed it does, Christian, but we have to break now because Mollie Walker of the New York Post will be joining us. So, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. We'll be right back.
Customer service is the backbone of any great business, and reliable telecommunication is essential to keeping your client base happy. Introducing Thai Technology, a low-cost, flexible internet phone service founded on the idea that every customer deserves exceptional service while providing simple setup and management and easy integration to clients across the country. Thai Technology will not only create a custom solution tailored to your specific needs, but will partner with you to provide a competitive edge to you and your clients. And if you need support, you won't be routed to an automated call center in another country. You'll get a live representative that had a personal hand in building your account. So Islander fans, if your business is looking for a change from companies like Spectrum, Verizon, or Optimum, Thai Technology is offering 3 free months of service for any of its affordable packages. Just call 516-856-7800. That's 516-856-7800, or visit them on the web at thaitechnology.com. That's Thai, T-I-E technology.com. Thai Technology, the right choice for your internet phone service.
The only thing better than a great Long Island deli is a great Long Island deli run by die-hard Islander fans. Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, will make any Islander fan feel right at home with its familiar blue and orange theme and Isles decor. Blue Line Deli and Bagels proudly serves Bagel Boss bagels, along with breakfast favorites, hockey-themed heroes, quesadillas, salads, fresh-made smoothies, and much more. So stop on in for delicious food, a clean atmosphere, and a happy staff ready to greet you with friendly service no matter what team you support. Want to place an order for pickup? Call 631-944-3222 or visit BlueLineDeli.com to check out the menu and order online. Blue Line Deli and Bagels, where the great selections will have you saying, yes, yes, yes.
Therapy with Shawnee and C. Arnold on Hockey Night in New York.
Oh, welcome back to the program. This is Hockey Night in New York. I'm Christian, and with me, as always, is Sean. And, of course, it's time for our On the Line segment, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Tide Technology. And with us on the line is from the New York Post, Mollie Walker, covers the National Hockey League, the New York Islanders, the New York Rangers, also the co-host of the Up in the Blue Seats podcast, the New York Post podcast, New York Rangers podcast. Mollie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. This is my first time using Twitch, so big moment.
It is. It's our first time.
Congratulations.
It's our first time with a guest that was able to figure out how to use Skype within 5 minutes. So
truly,
it is a pleasure to have you on, Mollie. Obviously, with the Islanders and Rangers facing off on Monday, it's a great time to bring you back on the show. And of course, a lot's been going on with the Islanders, and a lot has been going on with the New York Rangers. Before we get into some of that, obviously the Islanders going into that matchup, they play Pittsburgh on Saturday, but going into that matchup, they find themselves kind of in a bit of a rut. Certainly, a lot of things have not gone the way that people would have expected them to this early in the season. Just from your view, Mollie, what have you seen out of the New York Islanders early on this year?
I think they're getting away from their game. I mean, I look back to the bubble and their systems, their just their focus and just what they were doing on the ice is just not what I'm seeing right now from the Islanders. It's just not the same systematic and lockdown formation, I guess I could say. It's just not the same at all. And I think they're getting away from their game. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And Matt Barzal is carrying the whole team on his back. Like there's no other way to put it. I mean, I obviously haven't been covering the Islanders as much as I have the Rangers, but I took a glance at the statistics, and he is literally doubling the team in points.
And penalty minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's also an issue. But I mean, he is literally has 10 points, and the rest of the team has 5, and that just can't happen. As great of a player as Matt Barzal is, he can't put the entire team on his back, and they just can't keep riding him like they are. And he is going to, make those immature mistakes still, as he clearly has, going in the penalty box as much as he has. But you need more players to step up. I personally would like to see JG Pageau step up a little bit more than he has. And I know he's probably been in a little bit more of a tougher position than almost anybody in the lineup because his wings keep getting changed. Right. And the wingers that he's getting are young and inexperienced, and he is expected to carry the whole entire line no matter what. But he's not. He's not doing what he can do. And I know that when he signed that big contract when he first came to Long Island, he said he wanted to play to it and prove that he was worth that investment. And I know that he wants to. So, I mean, he just needs to start doing it.
Certainly an interesting situation Pageau finds himself in. And since you brought it up, Mollie, let's go there. Obviously, the two young players you're referring to are Oliver Wahlstrom and Kiefer Bellows. Kiefer has gotten a bit more time than Oliver has on the roster in game situations. What have you made of the two? Obviously, it seems like the two of them play pretty well when they're all together on the ice. But what have you made of Bellows and Wahlstrom through their first couple games with the Islanders this year?
I would say that there have been moments where they stand out positively, and then there are also moments where they stand out negatively. But that's going to come. They're so young. They're in their first couple of seasons, so that's just a given. That you can't do anything about that. And I would prefer, if I were Barry Trotz, which obviously I'm not, but I would.
Who is?
Nobody. I would like to see him keep riding those two because they need to get the experience. They need to get the ice time in order to work out those kinks because we have seen what they can do when they get comfortable and when they, are in a groove, I guess. So but it's a tough position. I know, how do you pronounce it? Zarnak?
Zarnik, yeah.
Zarnak, yeah.
Sure.
He's gotten some time, and Timashov too has gotten some time. But obviously Bellows and Wallstrom are considered to be offensive weapons, and that's more what the Islanders need. So they need to be able to work out those kinks and work out those rookie mistakes in order to get feeling comfortable and get in a groove so that they can start contributing. So, I mean, if it were up to me, I would continue riding them, but obviously they're kind of in a rut right now and sitting at the bottom of the division, which I don't think anybody expected them to be there. So maybe they don't have that luxury of keeping them, of riding them as much. But I mean, there's got to be some point where you got to just say, we just need to give them time and let them get comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something we kind of keyed on last week, talking about Barry Trotz just settling on some wingers for J.G. Pageau, because even though he has been struggling, like you said, and also pointed out the fact that it's just tougher for him because, he needs to be able to get used to the guys he's with. Because, look, everybody has different tendencies. Everybody, kind of finds their spot differently, I suppose, on the ice and whatnot. So it'll be good for him when he actually has some regular line mates. But I guess as we continue to play musical chairs on that line, Austin Danger Zarnik did get a cup of coffee, if you will, on Sunday night.
Wait, all right. I want to interject something. Mollie,
here we go.
You're on the younger side of the sports media landscape, and it's a fair question. So Brian Compton, who we've had on the show a number of times, loves to use this phrase, a cup of coffee. He's used it to Barry when we've been on these press conference calls and whatever. And I got a lot of garbage, a lot of crap, for not knowing or never hearing that phrase. I would at least like some backup that someone else has not heard this phrase.
I mean, can I hear it in context?
So Zarnik just got called up to the Islanders. He finally got his cup of coffee with the NHL. That's kind of what it is.
His chance,
his
opportunity, I guess.
Wow.
I mean, honestly, I
never
haven't
heard it.
Really?
I've never.
Thank
you.
So we're really
Yeah.
So Brian and I are just dating ourselves, I guess, and
I think
the
so.
majority of our viewers and listeners, because I remember seeing comments that night being like, "How does Christian not know what cup of coffee means?"
It's nice to have some backup. I'm sorry to interrupt. Continue. Your
No,
question,
no,
Mollie.
this is good for your pride, Christian. I'm glad we can work that out.
I mean, he just compared apples to potatoes.
Yeah,
so
I mean, obviously the guy has no idea how to use cliches. That we've certainly figured that out, if nothing else. So back to the topic at hand. Yeah. So Zarnik, I'm trying to gather my thoughts now. So again, musical chairs with this line. He got a chance, and a lot of people have some positive things to say about him. He has some speed. Barry trusted him a lot in that first game. He even ended up seeing some power play time. Do you think he has a shot to maybe nudge one of these kids aside, Bellows or Wallstrom, to maybe flank J.G. Pageau for longer than just some spot duty here and there?
I think I'm going to give a very Barry Trotz answer
Please,
here.
yeah.
I'm just embodying Barry tonight,
That's fine.
I think that it creates competition. And I think that's something that the Islanders maybe haven't had in a pretty long time, honestly. I mean, now that these young prospects are on their way up, it creates competition. And, Kiefer Bellows and Oliver Wallstrom are going to be looking over their shoulder now. There are other guys in the mix now that are fighting for ice time and that are doing good things on the ice too, and that are trying to win Barry's, favor. So I think that that's good for any lineup, no matter who you are in the NHL. So I think that having competition amongst your young talent is imperative to not only development, but just, I guess team competitiveness too. Everybody obviously wants to be in the lineup, but when you have guys that are, battling for spots and battling for ice time, I think it really does create a good team chemistry, and, everybody's chasing the same, Barry likes to say, climbing the mountain. Everybody wants to get there. So and everybody wants to be a part of it too. So I think that it's very healthy for the Islanders, if and they have a very unique. It's similar to the Rangers. They have a very unique balance of veterans and young players too. So it's a very interesting balance to navigate. So I think it's good for the lineup. I really do.
This is On the Line, brought to you by our friends from Tide Technology. And on the line with us is Mollie Walker. She covers the Islanders. She covers the Rangers for the New York Post. Also, the co-host of the Up in the Blue Seats podcast, the New York Post Rangers podcast. Molly, obviously, you cover the Rangers, so you have some insight there. The Islanders play the Rangers on Monday. It's actually a pretty big matchup, as you referred to earlier. The Islanders are in the East Division, presented by Mass Mutual, because I just got to do that.
Nice job.
They're in the basement of that division. The Rangers are actually a couple points in front of them. It's certainly a situation that I think not a lot of people would have expected. Going into this matchup, what are some of the keys that Islander fans should be watching for from the Rangers, and what do you think is going to be the X factor here in that game?
Well, first of all, I am hoping we see Shesterkin versus Sorokin. I think that would just be super exciting
I
and
don't think
great for
Barry's
New
gonna give
York
it to us.
hockey.
I
Yeah,
don't think he's
I
gonna do it.
know,
Yeah.
I know. But I mean, hey, when the team can barely put up a goal in front of Sorokin, I mean, I don't blame him either. So I mean, I think I'm hoping that'll happen, but we'll see. But I think from a Rangers standpoint, they're going into probably one of the toughest portions of their schedules. They had the Capitals the other day. They got the Flyers and Bruins, a bunch of slew of games against all the top three teams in the division. So they know that this is going to be a measuring stick for them going forward. And then facing the Islanders, I mean, they got their butts handed to them in the season opener, but then turned around and really flipped the script there and basically did the same thing to them. So they're kind of going in on an even playing field here. They kind of got a 1-2 punch on one another to start the season. So I think that they know that the Islanders are not going to be an easy game at all, but they also don't want to recreate what happened in that season opener in any way, shape, or form. So I think that they are looking ahead to the bigger competition that they do have at the top of the East, but also want to pick up one against the Islanders because not only of what happened in the season opener, but because they need to dig themselves. They already kind of did dig themselves out of the hole. They're back at 500, but they need to keep going. And their playoff berth is dependent on this next stretch of games. So it's really important to them, but it's also really important for the Islanders. I mean, they have shown that they're able to do that to the Rangers, and they're kind of neck and neck in the bottom of the division, and they need to get the points too. So.
Molly, there's one player I wanted to ask you about on the Rangers who's been, it seems like he's been getting a lot of buzz, but maybe it's just because Sean and I are both from Long Island, and anytime anyone from Long Island succeeds in anything, it's plastered all over Newsday and some of the other newspapers around here. Mm-hmm. But Anthony Bitetto, I believe is how his name, Island Park native, not too far from where our studios are now. What's been going on with him? And like I said, I think he got his first NHL goal the other night. He certainly seemed to be doing pretty well there. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he has. I mean, he started the season on the taxi squad, and then obviously with Tony DeAngelo's exile and Brendan Smith getting hurt, they're pretty scarce on D right now. So suddenly he's in the thick of the defensive core, and I would go as far to say he's a veteran. I mean, he is the veteran on that defensive core. He's last night? Yeah, last night. He was the only 30-year-old in the Rangers defensive core. Like that's pretty wild. Yeah, that's, if you think about that, that's pretty wild.
That makes me sad. Sorry, go ahead.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, he brings a nice bit of experience. He's been on 3-4 different teams now at this point. So, he's been around the block, and he brings a little bit of veteran leadership. And he said he wanted to kind of be a leader for that young group. And he's kind of brought that. I actually have a feature coming out on him on Sunday. And what I've talked to a couple of his coaches, I'm planning on talking to his parents too, but he had 2 seasons at Northeastern, and I talked to Jim Madigan, and basically what I've gotten from, David Quinn and Madigan, he's just a lively presence in the locker room. He's a really, really good locker room guy, has a big personality, is just super fun, brings a life to the bench of the Rangers, basically. I mean, Long Islanders should feel represented 100% of the New York Rangers. So it's really exciting for him. And, it's really endearing to hear him talk about, how it's always been all about the Rangers when he grew up, and that, when he got to Madison Square Garden, he was absolutely speechless. And then the goal that he had against the Capitals the other night was stunning. Like, there's just no other way to put it. It was, I mean, when you asked David Quinn about it, he was like, what is he doing? Because he was like circling the net. He was just he was doing like a Matthew Barzell, type of possession around the whole zone. And then he just cut down the middle and finished it with a backhander. And it was just, mwah, chef's kiss. Like, there's no other way to put it. It
Pour
was
some
very
salt on it.
pretty.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
Very nice. So, Mollie, I wanted to ask you more of the, I suppose, broad scope of this Ranger team, as in, what is their expectation for this season? Because if you looked into the season previews going in, you have some writers saying that this is their year to push through, make the playoffs. Other people saying they're not there yet. What's the belief in that locker room? Where do they see themselves going? And what do you consider their potential for this season?
Well, I'd like to say, being on an Islanders podcast right now, that I had the
Very smart.
Islanders
Very
making the playoffs over the Rangers. So putting
Well
that
done.
out there.
Well
But the Rangers are basically using the playoffs as a barometer. They feel like getting in the playoffs is a very logical goal for them, but that's kind of it. There hasn't been any talk of the Stanley Cup, obviously. Like, they're not really shooting that high, but they believe that they should be able to make the playoffs. And it's funny because Larry Brooks and I had very similar lineups for the East Division of how it's going to shake out, except he had the Rangers in fourth and I had the Islanders in fourth.
That's Larry.
So, yeah, so it was, it's funny. So I'm very curious to see who will end up having the more accurate bracket. But I mean, it's definitely logical, a logical goal for them to want to make the playoffs. And honestly, with the way they played the Capitals the other night, but they got to bring that kind of style every night. But we also saw them absolutely stink up the ice against the Islanders in the season opener. Like, they can also play like that sometimes.
Right.
So it's really give or take. They've already been hit with the injury bug. Philip Heedle's down. That was a huge, huge blow to their forward depth. So, but he should be back. They said 4 to 6 weeks. So, depending on when they get him back. I mean, I'm not going to bring up Jack Johnson because he hasn't really had any bit of an impact in the lineup just yet. Right. But, they are aiming for the playoffs, but they have to give 150% every night in order to be able to do that, especially in this loaded East Division. I mean, it is by far one of the most toughest division, but also I was peeking over at the North, and they're pretty heavy too right now. They got higher points than everybody else in the league, so we'll see.
Talking with Mollie Walker on the line, presented by our friends over at Tide Technology. Mollie, I think we'd be doing disservice at this point if we didn't switch the drama that's been going on with the New York Rangers. And to kind of tie it all together, it does sort of begin with the New York Islanders, considering the way the Rangers season started against the Islanders. Tony DeAngelo, certainly he's made a lot of headlines, not only this last week or so, but really through the course of his career with some of the things he's done. What can you tell us about what happened between Tony DeAngelo and the New York Rangers and how the situation so quickly devolved?
Sure. So, I mean, if we're going from the very beginning, you're right. That season opener was really the beginning of the end for Tony DeAngelo, is kind of the vibe that I got from the press conference with John Davidson and Jeff Gorton. He took that unsportsmanlike penalty in the third period, slammed the glass, mouthed off to the refs, just not a good penalty, not a good look for the Rangers. And David Quinn benched him for disciplinary purposes the next game. And then the Rangers went out and won 5-0. So naturally, David Quinn is going to roll with the same lineup. So he was a healthy scratch for a second straight game. And essentially during the press conference that JD and Jeff Gorton called to address the whole saga was that Jeff Gorton was not a fan of how Tony DeAngelo took that benching. He was not a fan of the way he reacted, of the way he handled himself. And he essentially said to him, he said verbatim, one more thing, I hear your name one more time, and you're going on waivers, and we're moving on. Fast forward a couple of games. After that tough overtime loss to the Penguins, Sidney Crosby gets a game winner off a miscommunication between Georgiev and Tony DeAngelo behind the net. And as they're walking off the ice, Tony says some snarky comment to Georgiev. Georgiev clocks him
Wow.
with his blocker pad still on, puts him in a headlock, and it's a whole big tussle in the hallway basically. And a lot of people were saying that they were really shocked that Georgiev would be the first one to throw a punch and,
Sure.
be the aggressor, I guess. But I'm here to tell you that I wasn't shocked at all. I have spoken to Georgiev one-on-one multiple times, and I have developed a pretty nice relationship with him in the locker room. And he's a prideful guy. He's proud. He knows what he can bring to the lineup. He knows who he is. He knows what he contributes to the team. And this is a guy that's been kind of on the back burner for the Rangers his entire time he's been here, whether it's behind Henrik Lundqvist. When Shesterkin came up, Shesterkin was tabbed the number one by media, by fans. He's kind of just always been there. Everybody considered him to be a trade chip for a really long time.
Yeah.
But aside from this season, because Georgiev hasn't really been that great, but Georgiev has done nothing really but prove that he is worthy of being being on the roster, of being a number 2 or sharing the number 1 title with someone else. He's done relatively well for them. So he knows what he brings, and he gives up a game winner to Sidney Crosby. Like, what goaltender hasn't given up a game winner to
I
Sidney
haven't.
Crosby? Right?
I haven't given up a goal to
Seriously,
Sidney
I have
Crosby.
too. Like, so he naturally snapped at one of his teammates who is a big personality, clearly, and
that was a really nice
it's
way of
not-
saying something much different. But I give you credit for maneuvering like that, Molly.
But he snapped, and honestly, it was understandable. I mean, who wants to be chirped by their own teammate, especially after a tough loss like that?
I know the feeling.
So, I mean, it was a whole big saga and clearly a very public incident. So Jeff Gordon said he had to stick to his word, and apparently Tony received a call that night that he was going on waivers.
Well, good on Gordon for sticking to his word. And, I guess if you look on the ice, it seems like all is pretty well. But I suppose, what's the feeling now, kind of interacting with the Rangers now and with the players in the locker room? Is there almost like a sigh of relief now that maybe there's an end to that saga?
Well, I mean, he's done. He's on his way out of town.
Yeah.
Gordon said that they're not considering terminating his contract right now because that could turn into a whole legal battle. But they're trying to orchestrate a trade. I know Larry Brooks reported that the Flames were possibly interested. So they're trying to just orchestrate a trade, let him just get out of town and go play somewhere else. But, I mean, I'll tell you, after the Capitals win, the vibe from the Rangers has just been stellar. They're happy. They're the happy-go-lucky, free. Like, Chris Kreider was pulling up and down on the table during Ryan Strome's post-game media conference. It was really funny. So they're in good spirits. And I was watching the live stream today from practice, and lots of smiles. So I know that I was getting a lot of responses on Twitter. Everybody saying, "Oh, I wonder what happened. I wonder what changed." So I can definitely say that the team is in really good spirits, but also winning will do that to you.
Sure.
So whether it's Tony DeAngelo going out of town or this little win streak that they've put together, the team is in good spirits.
Mollie Walker from the New York Post. You can hear her on the Up in the Blue Seats podcast, which is the New York Post, New York Rangers podcast. It does a great job. Very talented. I know your brother does a podcast. We probably shouldn't be plugging other Ranger podcasts, but I recommend Mollie's podcast. She does a great job with Ron Duguay as well, who's on there, who's a tremendous personality in his own right, and they do a great job. So certainly, if you're looking for the Rangers perspective, give it a listen. Mollie, we really appreciate you coming on. We really appreciate you being the first technological savvy guest that we could have on the show.
Hey, Charlie was good too.
Charlie was good. You're right. I forgot we had Charlie.
Come on.
I'm just thinking back to Andrew.
No, I'll take it. Forget Charlie. I don't even remember.
But thank you so much, Mollie. We really appreciate the insight, and the listeners really seem to love you in the chat room.
Thanks a lot, Mollie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Take care. All right, folks. That was the great Mollie Walker of the New York Post.
Yes.
Great stuff on the line. Thai Technology.
Yeah. Great stuff from them as well.
Yeah, of course.
I heard
we love their stuff.
I heard a rumor that we're getting some stuff from them.
We might be getting some stuff.
I'm very excited.
Yeah,
for this.
we might shamelessly wear some swag in the near future.
I'm glad my shameless plug to get some high technology gear worked.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you've made your approach to that very well known on this show. So at least you're not shying away from it.
No, I don't.
So yeah, Christian's going to be decked out in a bunch of TT.
Oh, 100%. Free
Garb
stuff.
in the near
I'll take it
future.
all the time, man.
So awesome stuff from Mollie.
Yeah, it's great insight.
And pretty interesting on the D'Angelo stuff. I mean, for obvious reasons, but it's funny to see how it seems like it did kind of lift the team's spirits with him out of the picture. But look, when you have that kind of pressure, removed from the locker room, that kind of stress or what have you, tension, I think is the word I was reaching for there. It's going to make any locker room improve.
And I think the really interesting thing, and say what you will about a lot of the differences between the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers, you really got the sense of the difference in the locker room chemistry and camaraderie between the Rangers and Islanders, even just by the people that the Islanders organization brings in. One of the interesting things that we had the opportunity, I think it was a week ago, some of us in the media, to speak with some of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers players that were reporting to camp.
Yeah.
And I forget which Sound Tiger it was. It was one of them that had been in camp with the Islanders and then was sent back down.
One of them who plays hockey.
One of them who plays
Right.
hockey. He has a hockey stick.
Yeah.
He shoots lefty and or righty.
Sure.
He was talking about how tight he could tell the Islanders' dressing room was. Just from being around there for a couple days, or a couple weeks, I should say. He could tell the camaraderie that was there, that everyone, how tight-knit a group it was.
Yeah.
And you really get that sense going all the way back to the bubble last year, this year, the way the team rallies around some of its other players and whatnot, and rallies around each other.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the difference between the New York Rangers locker room, and it sounds like it's a tight room now that they got rid of someone that maybe wasn't necessarily the right fit for that locker room and the right personality for some of those guys. You leave a lot of some of the other stuff, away from the ice, out of the conversation. But even inside the locker room, he was kind of a bombastic figure when it came to just his own play.
Had his own podcast.
Right.
Yeah,
so certainly a major difference there in the camaraderie. And I thought it was an interesting look at how different the organizations are in certain aspects, because Tony D'Angelo is a guy that came to the Rangers with a lot of baggage away from the ice, on the ice, off the ice. And that's not necessarily something you see the Islanders do a lot of when it comes to the players that they bring in. One of the things that they always talk about, whether it was Garth, whether it was Lou, was about character. And that's something that the organization as a whole really does value. So it was,
Big time.
I just thought it's an interesting note, especially going into that matchup with the New York Rangers on Monday. The Islanders played the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday, their first game since taking a unexpected break this past week and getting some extra reps in during practice. It certainly sets up for an interesting week for the Islanders, who desperately need points.
There is no doubt about that. And I guess my last thought on the whole D'Angelo situation is that I kind of lost my train of thought here for a second, but where was I going with it? Oh, yes. So we're not in the business of praising the Rangers on this show, but I mean, good again. I'll say it again. Good on Gordon and good on the Rangers, because this is a guy who was producing at a high clip for this team. I mean, look at maybe not so much this season at the start, but look at the numbers he put up previously.
Last year
there's no denying that. I mean, he had a hat trick. He put up like 15 goals. I mean, it's not like it. Look, it would have been a lot easier to cut loose a guy that was a problem if he was
wasn't
fourth
producing.
liners, maybe seventh defenseman, third pairing guy, and okay, fine, you let him go, but he was a big part of that team last year. So the fact that they're able to, kind of take a look at the situation, whether it has anything to do with the other nonsense he's known for or not, the fact that he was causing a problem with his teammates in that locker room, and they looked at it and they weighed the health of that locker room and the camaraderie and the attitude, I suppose, of the players versus whatever he brought to the ice. They said it wasn't worth it. So he must have been a real pain in the ass in that locker room for them to be like, sorry, pal, you're out of here.
There certainly must have been something going on. And I mean, it was clear if what's been reported, and obviously what Mollie was telling us, is that Georgiev, clocked him, got tired of the nonsense in that regard and clocked him. So it certainly says a lot about what's been going on. Obviously, talking about the health of the Islanders, because going into this game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, going into their game against the New York Rangers, and the games they have next week, the health of their season is kind of on the line, if you will, with the way that things
a lot
have
on the line.
started. Not and that on the line. It's not brought to you by
No,
Tie
it's not.
Technology, but we still mention them anyway. But the point being, this is a pretty important week for the Islanders. This is an opportunity for them to turn it around, and they need to turn it around. We were talking about it before, and Mollie alluded to it as well. I think it's time you give Bellows and Wahlstrom an opportunity to just run with the ball and see where things go. They're going to make mistakes. We've talked about it before, but at this point, I mean, the Islanders dropped 5 games. It's not getting any worse. They're not going to, I don't think at this point they're winning or losing games because Oliver Wahlstrom is in the lineup over a guy like Leo Komarov or Michael Dal Cole or anyone like that. So in that same regard, too, now we're finally going to see some more consistent lineups, and I'm interested to see how that plays out and who goes where. And I kind of wanted to pose this question to you, Sean, kind of playing coach here. Let's do it. Get into the mind of Barry Trotz, if you will. You're Barry Trotz. Ooh. You're the head coach of the New York Islanders.
Okay, I'm okay with that, sure.
You're a pretty well-liked guy around the area, so that's a big change for you.
Oh, thank you. Go on.
What is your lineup looking like come Saturday, come Monday, going forward, this consistent lineup that we're being told is coming?
Well, I don't mind keeping that swap intact that he made with the first 2 lines, swapping Eberle and Bailey, because as we've talked about on the show, Bailey needed to get going. And granted, it was just a deflection, mind you, a nice one.
Right.
But, he got on the scoreboard, and maybe he could use a little boost from Matt Barzal. Because, look, a lot of people have been talking a lot of great things about the way he's been playing on the ice. Forget about the penalties and stuff for a second, but it's been very noticeable.
Yeah.
He's on pace for like 85 points, I guess, in a full 82-game season, whatever the case may be. As Mollie Walker highlighted, he's got double the points of everybody else in the team. So if you got a guy who you need to get going, that's probably who you want to, line him up with. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a problem with them riding Bailey on that first line for a little bit and seeing how Eberle and Nelson could mesh, because you know what? Nelson's a guy that needs to get going too. So maybe that swap kind of, energize the lineup, throughout that top 6, right? Mm-hmm. So let's get to the real crux of the lineup though, that third line. Now, Barry said he wants to at least have a pairing for that line, which is pretty common. Right. You usually line up 2 guys, like whether it's Liam Barzal or not so much now, but Nelson and Bo or Eberle, right? So my prediction, and I'm not saying I'm any good at these, but I think that guy that he's going to end up kind of latching to Pajot is going to be Kiefer Bellows. I think he's, out of the young guys, he's shown the most trust in him so far. I mean, Johnston got in for more games than we all expected.
A cup of coffee.
Good job. But I don't think that he's going to ultimately be the guy, that's going to be tied to Pajot. I mean, why? We don't even have to dive into why.
Right. I mean, we talked about sort of the redundancy that's in the lineup already.
Right.
You put Ross Johnson
that would be a poor coaching decision in my opinion. So I think it's going to be Bellows because he's more or less gotten the most trust out of the young guys. I think he wants to go young. I think he wants Wahlstrom or Bellows, or maybe to a lesser degree, Dal Cole, to be that guy who steps up and grabs it, like Shannon Hogan said last week, right? And I think Bellows is going to be that guy. Maybe it takes him a little longer to figure out who's going to be on the other side of that line. Maybe he still has to rotate a guy in or 2, but at least having that 2 to 3, at least Pajot can look up and know that on one side of the ice, he knows where that guy's going to be. Right. He's going to learn that guy's tendencies.
And he had that last year, too. You look back, again, we talked about it a little bit. Sure. Broussard was there. He was his constant.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Kiefer Bellows is going to be the one, because one thing that doesn't get talked about, I know a lot of people were annoyed that, we talked about it last week, I know, but I'm just going to revisit it to get to this point. A lot of people were annoyed that Zarnik and Timashov were in the lineup over Bellows and Wahlstrom last Sunday when they played the Philadelphia Flyers in that last game of the road trip. You look at the way they've
part of the experiment.
They've been experimenting. They're giving it time. The point I was getting at, though, it was never an indication or an indictment on the way that Bellows or Wahlstrom had been playing. But Barry wanted to see what he had in those 2 guys, and Zarnik, to his credit, took the ball and kind of ran with it in that game. And certainly made an impression. The broader point I want to get to, though, is that Barry Trotz is not opposed to using younger players. I think that there's kind of this aura around him that he tends to go more vet.
It's not just Barry. It's coaches throughout the league.
Right. But to the point...
They're always going to trust the veterans a little more than the younger guys.
100%. Yeah. But to the point I'm getting at, you go back to Barry's first year here. You have Devontae's, who had a very good training camp with the New York Islanders, was making a push to make the team out of camp.
And then he went back down.
Barry wanted him. Barry said, hey, I wanted to have Devontae's in the lineup
that's right. I remember that.
Right at a training camp. And Lou was the one who said, give it time.
Nope.
And they did give it time, and they gave, Hayes goes down. He comes back up the first game of the year after Adam Pellick gets hurt. And
Right.
He takes his spot. Is it Adam Pellick or is it Ryan Poole?
I'm just agreeing with you. It may be wrong.
A player got hurt. I forget who it was. A player does get hurt.
It's probably Boychuk.
That's a good option. Be nice.
That'd be a good guess, right?
That's a good guess, but I forget who it was.
Nothing against
Maybe
him.
it was Thomas Hickey. I'm just going through that entire list of players that were on there.
It could have been Mayfield. It could have been Pollock.
But the point is, he comes and he succeeds. But where I'm going is that Barry Trotz is not opposed to putting younger players in there.
It was Hickey because he got hurt. He had the family issues,
Right.
and then he kind of ended up losing his spot
Right.
over it. Okay, great. We sorted it out. Go.
Yes. But the point is, Barry Trotz is not opposed to using younger players in there. And he's shown that. The Devontae story is the perfect example of it.
Sure.
Maybe that's not Lou Lamoriello's style all the time, and it ended up working out in that instance.
Yeah.
But right here, right now, I think Barry is showing that he wants to use these younger players. Kiefer Bellows has played in almost every Islander game this season, except for
And
two.
that surprised me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Pleasantly.
a lot of these messages about people saying, "Oh, he doesn't want to play the youngsters. He's playing this guy over that guy," or he's, what does it say about they're getting time. Bellows is getting time. Wallstrom could get some more time. He's only played in 2 games, and they've been very limited minutes, but they're getting time. And like you said last week too, Michael Cole is still young. He's not necessarily the guy that a lot of Islander fans want for his scoring touch in the lineup. But he's still on the younger side of things, and there is a purpose that he serves. There is a role that he has. And if you're talking about rolling that third line, basically, which is, I think, where rolling one person in and out of the lineup in that third line, that rotation, Dow Cole is not the worst player in the world to have on one side of a wing of J.G. Pageau.
Yeah, we've said that for a while.
Nor is Oliver Wallstrom. I mean, if those are the two guys that are coming in the lineup, and obviously you'd like to see Wallstrom get some more consistent time,
I think
that's not the worst thing in the world.
Well, Barry has kind of hinted to the fact that he wants 2 guys, which means that maybe based on who they're playing,
I mean, he said that multiple times.
He's going to bring different guys in because he's going to look at the lineup on the other side of the score sheet, and he's going to be like, okay, the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm going to put this guy in.
Right.
Okay, the New York Rangers, I'm going to put this guy in. Or this guy wasn't pulling his weight last week, I'm going to bring that guy in. So, look, he wants that, consistency.
Yes.
And I think he's just, again, rocking a hard place. We talked about it previously. Like, you only have so much time to work it out.
Right.
But you got to give it some time
100%.
so you can trust your instincts and make the best choice. So I don't envy him, but he's getting there.
And Barry Trotz has made no bones about the fact, it's no secret that Barry has said on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
A lot of the roster decisions, especially early on, were being dictated by the schedule, by back-to-backs, by how closely, by how much time in between games they have, opponents. These are all factors that are being played into it. So that's part of the issue there when he's making the lineup. Obviously, trying to see everybody that he can in the lineup and give them an opportunity. That's part of it. We didn't mention Austin Czarnik, but I mean, he's a guy that's got to get another opportunity in the lineup, considering that.
No, we did. We talked about him before.
No, but I mean, coming up, Beauvillier not playing.
Sure.
I have to imagine Czarnik.
And
is
he's
gonna
not
get a
playing
look.
tomorrow.
Right, he's not playing tomorrow.
Right.
That's what I meant. He's not playing against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
We don't know after that if he'll be in the lineup against the Rangers or going forward. He has been skating at Northwell, not necessarily with the main group on the ice, but with I think the way Trotz kind of phrased it today was basically by himself. He was skating basically by himself. Which is kind of sad when you think about it. I know. Just imagine Anthony Beauvillier skating around an empty Northwell ice rink. And
Yeah, sure.
His head down with the puck. I wish I had some fun.
Go to the other rink, Anthony.
Yeah.
We got some big boy stuff going on here. You go mend your wounds over there, all right? Yeah.
Poor guy.
Poor Bo.
But I would imagine Czarnik is probably in that conversation too, especially the third line.
Yeah.
If he's in that rotation as well, I mean, again, it's a small sample size. It's one game.
Yeah.
But he certainly did enough to impress a lot of people. Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see out. And did you want to finish your lineup there?
Oh, sure. Well,
do you stick with do you keep the fourth
well,
line?
we wanted to talk about the fourth line anyway.
Okay.
I said going into this season that this is I'm pretty confident, and there's some obvious reasons for it, but this is the last year we're going to see this fourth line as it is now. This is the last time you're going to see Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, and Casey Cizikas on this line. Whether it's because, and this is the likely reason, because Casey Cizikas can no longer be fit under the cap,
right,
given what he produces and what he's going to kind of demand on the open market. If they can work out a contract, fantastic. I love Casey Cizikas. He's one of my favorite players on the team.
Yeah.
So if they can figure out a way to keep him for longer, great. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But then there's also just the performance on the ice reasons. Now, you pointed out to me, outside of the show, that they're one of the third worst ranked fourth line or something like that.
That's according to
Money Puck.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever that is, but I guess they track like advanced stats and whatnot.
Stats, yeah.
Okay, so obviously that's not good, and most teams in the NHL follow advanced stats, so they're obviously aware of this, and maybe Barry's been a little stubborn with this line, and for good reason, because look, Islander country and as well as the coaching staff has been singing this line's praises for a very long time. Everybody loves what they bring to the table when they're all on their game, banging bodies, causing havoc down low, causing turnovers, getting scrappy goals. I mean, you look what they did during the playoffs, particularly Matt Martin. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, these guys have shown that they can bring a very needed style to a hockey team, especially a hockey team like the Islanders, who need to play aggressively and play a defensive style and whatnot. So I don't blame Barry Trotz for giving this line some more time.
Right.
But when you look at the fact that they're obviously struggling, yeah, I mean, it makes you think maybe it's time to get some younger legs in there. Maybe a Zarnik, maybe even a Timashov, because there's less expectation on guys in that fourth line role. Get out there, get some energy out there, annoy maybe the top line, the second line of the other team. Just make sure the puck doesn't end up in your net. Right. That's essentially what your job is out there, right? Maybe cause a little havoc. So I'm sticking with them for now, but I am certainly open to experimenting. I mean, like I said, it's going to end up getting broken up eventually.
Right.
And you got to figure out who's going to fill those roles, whether it's guys that are currently within the franchise now or whether they got to dip into free agency during the summer. But it's eventually going to change. And if Barry sees, a way to improve it, I'm all ears.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting situation. And the Money Puck tweet, it was in a tweet about the worst lines in the NHL, and they were third worst there in that group. I forget who the other two were. Ahead, below them, I guess, in this instance, not necessarily ahead of them.
Yeah.
But it's certainly an interesting change for that line because they do serve a very specific purpose, right? You just described it perfectly.
Damn
they're
right.
an energy line. Enough.
Just go.
They are obviously an energy line, and there's a specific role that they play. And when they don't necessarily play that role, it's a very expensive line for one that's not necessarily producing what you need it to do. So when that line isn't doing what you need to do, it is a very expensive line that is just kind of there.
Yeah, no question.
And I think
there's no way they can give Cizikas a raise and keep that line together next year. It is not possible.
No, it's
people hate the money in that line already. I
yes,
hear it
and
from
they like
fans
and they
all
like
the time.
Matt Martin and Casey Cizikas and Cal Clutterbuck,
right?
As people,
right? But
they
there
hate
has to
that
be a balance.
the number that they have on their contracts.
Yeah.
Whether that's fair or not, I mean, it's, you're never gonna fault a guy for taking more money.
Of course.
Well, you say of course, but I think there are people out there who don't understand that concept.
I don't know. No, I think it's not on the player. It goes to the management. It doesn't go to the player. I don't think fans are upset with the players for signing the contract. They're upset with Lou Lamoriello for giving him the contract, giving Andy Green a 20-game performance bonus, stuff like that. And I hear you. I get it.
Well, you needed Andy Green to be here. Well, the number he got was a little more. I'll give you that. But you needed Andy Green to be here. I'm assuming you meant Martin to be here.
Well, I'm talking across the board here. I'm talking across the board. Whether it's them, whether it's just you just brought up the point about who the Islander fans are looking at,
right?
To point the finger at for ruining the cap situation. I don't think they're pointing the finger at the player because of course, they want to play hockey and they want to make money. So where do I sign? So it's on the management team.
Fair enough. I think there are people who also blame the players, but that is aside from the point.
Well,
but you're right. You're not wrong in your assessment that. Now at this point, that's a line that either needs to produce or it needs to maybe things need to be adjusted there too. Do you put someone put in the chat? I just looked real quick.
Yeah,
I mean Andrew Ladd just sitting around doing nothing. Why not give him an opportunity if you're just paying? You know what I mean? I mean there's cap implications.
I think everybody
obviously
just turn their feet off. Actually.
There's cap implications but I'm just using an example. I
got
just saw
you.
it real quick.
You.
Ross Johnson, him and Matt Martin do play a similar role. Ross Johnson's a little bit younger as well.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody assumed that he was the heir apparent to Matt Martin eventually.
Right.
I think that's however many years ago it was now, 2, where when Lamoriello gave him a 4-year contract, everybody was scratching the head, but they were like, maybe he's the long-term
Matt Martin
replacement for Matt Martin.
And Ross Johnson has his moments again, but on a fourth line like that, and you're trying to shake things up, it's not a bad idea to take out one of those regulars if they're not producing. I don't disagree with that.
Look, if you're counting on your fourth line to be the difference between wins and losses, you got bigger problems. That being said,
They do play an important role on this team.
exactly. It doesn't mean you can't have a good, productive fourth line. You should certainly strive for that. So, which is why we look at these numbers and say, okay, if they're not performing as well as they could be, why not tinker with it? You have a whole taxi squad full of guys that you can slot in and out. And again, I'm with Barry if he's looking to be stubborn here and work with them for a little longer. Because when they're on, they're on. And unfortunately, there's no fans in the seats to get out of their seats when they're out there, but they usually get the fans out of their seats when they're doing their job.
Now, I'm curious. So it's been asked to them a couple times, several different occasions, but I'm curious your opinion, Sean. Do you think that the fact that there are no fans that are there to for the players, or in particular Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck, to feed off their energy during a game, do you think that's played into had any impact in the way they've played this season?
No, because we saw that they've been able to be successful during the return to play. We saw that they were able to play their game. So, no. Is it something that could, eventually weigh on players? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not in their heads. But I think I go back to the whole they're professionals talk. And everybody is under that circumstance.
No, 100%.
Whether you're the road team or the home team. So, no. And I wouldn't want to fall back on that as an excuse. I mean, the guys get paid a lot of money, as we just talked about.
Yes, they do.
And they got to go out there and do their jobs. And if they can't do their jobs under the circumstances, then they don't deserve to play. Then you got to find the guy who can dig deep and put the fact that there's nobody in the crowd, out of their minds, and just be able to get out there and play their asses off, whether there's, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, or 0 people in the building. So, I would hope not. I would hope that has nothing to do with it. And I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. I was just curious where your thought was. I just want to remind everyone, first of all, we appreciate everyone that's in the chat joining us for the special Friday edition of Hockey Night in New York. You can stream it on twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY.
That's right.
Also available on all your favorite podcast apps.
Podcast providers, I like to say.
Same difference. Same. Of course, thank you to our great sponsors, Blue Line Deli and Thai Technology. I can't wait for the free swag. Also, we just want to remind everyone, if you do have questions, we're monitoring the chat. Feel free to send us some questions in the chat. We'll answer them as we go along and continue our discussion on the air
And we still got to do the hero, brother.
And we still have to do the hero. Do you want to do the hero now?
Why don't we do the hero?
Let's do the hero now. See if anyone has some questions.
Here we go. We're going to shift here. We're going to hit some buttons, and here we go. When you hear that song, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Hero of the Week, half price Hero of the Week, which is this week the Poke Check, which consists of roast beef, ham, turkey, Swiss, American, lettuce, tomato, and mayo on a hero. Look at those delightful pictures there on the screen. It looks delicious. Get it half price all week starting tomorrow. That's Saturday through Sunday, where we'll announce a brand new half off hero. Stop in and mention Hockey Night in New York for half off the Poke Check. Now, with that being said, Christian, there were no games this week.
Yes.
So not only were there no games with a bunch of losses, there were just literally no games. So we had a hard enough time coming up with a Hero of the Week last week.
Yes,
you guys can imagine we had an even harder time coming up with a hero this week.
Sean just kept trying to nominate himself. I said, Sean, knock it off.
Yeah, I was like, obviously it's me. And Christian's like, no, obviously it's not. And I was like, okay, fair point. So with that being said, we went unique here. Another unanimous Hero of the Week. And look, this guy has, really been building up his reputation over the last couple of years. A lot of growth. And, had a big announcement this past week. And our Hero of the Week for tonight.
I clearly was not consulted.
For Friday is the UBS Arena, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
See that? A lot of growth, a lot of progress.
Oh,
big announcement.
I got it.
First concert, the weekend.
Yes. And it is the weekend. So what?
Wow. How about that, huh? Look how it all ties together.
What symmetry.
So, yeah, forgive us, but this is the best we got this week. UBS Arena. But look, we're all psyched about it. We all can't wait to get in there.
Barzal was super psyched.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, he got in a call about it, right?
Well, he was. It was during the media availability. It was Wednesday, I guess, was that announcement, right? Some Thursday, a couple days ago.
The 3rd.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
So Peter Schwartz from New York Sports Day. I think that's the website he writes for. New York Sports Day.
I hope so.
Peter Schwartz from New York Sports Day had actually asked him about it after the announcement. He was very excited, so I think he's looking forward to it as well, and he's going to try and get his hands on some tickets if the Islanders are off that day that the weekend is in town.
Okay. So he's amped about it. Yeah, weekend's pretty popular. I love that 80s retro song he's got going on. I'm not too familiar with his stuff.
Well, he's performing at the Super Bowl this weekend. I hope you do know that, right?
I can honestly tell you, I did not know that. I can honestly say I did not know he was performing at the Super Bowl.
Is this shtick right now, or are you being serious with me?
I literally just said twice, I can honestly tell you I did not know that. It's not shtick. That's how much I care about football and other sports. And I kid you not, I had no idea. I only found out
found out yesterday. It was the Super Bowl.
Dude, it's not that far off, honestly. But
Good Lord.
it was only a couple of days ago that I knew that the Chiefs and the Bucks were in the Super Bowl. And you know how I found out? Because I was offered to get into like a prop bet pool.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I'm looking at the sheet, and whoever made it did a very good job, and so they have.
I thought you were gonna. It's the way you were looking at me, like they did a terrible. job.
Great job.
Oh, okay.
But they had Tom Brady on there and quarterback of Kansas City,
Patrick Mahomes,
that guy. So I was like, oh, look who's playing. So yeah, I have no idea. Obviously this is an odd year for it, but yeah, if I go to a Super Bowl gathering, it's just for the social. It's for the social aspect. I don't care what happens in that game.
You're not alone. One of our viewers on Twitch just said the weekend could be sitting next to me on the couch and I wouldn't recognize him. So
fair enough. Well, he's performing the Super Bowl, so good for him.
Yes.
So obviously,
he's one of the biggest
if you're
acts in the
playing the
world,
Super Bowl,
whatever,
you obviously made it. So good for him. I like that new tune. Like I said, is it even new anymore? I don't know. But that 80s style, it's a very good tune. It reminds me of not only the 80s, but like Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Well, you were probably like 5. When
Vice City was great. That was the one that was set in Miami. Or
in the 80s.
Whatever facsimile.
Little video game talk here on Twitch. So, so the weekend, yeah, he's going to be performing at UBS Arena. So good for UBS Arena. Good for fans of that artist. And there you go. Here of the week.
And then obviously
UBS Arena.
The weekend announcement obviously also raises questions, of course, because you can't have any sort of Long Island venue open without speculating when or if Billy Joel will perform at that specific venue.
I'm so glad that it wasn't the announcement. Now, this is nothing against Billy Joel at all. I have tremendous respect for him. I like a lot of his music and all that. But I mean, the Islanders and Billy Joel have just been like how many years? Like he's always the guy who opens the arena or closes the arena. He's showing up at the arena announcement. I get it. It makes sense. But like for me, I was like, oh, not Billy Joel. Cool. Somebody else. Awesome. And they also the Islanders or UBS Arena went out of their way to say this will not be the first concert
yes, they did.
at UBS. It's just going to be a concert. It's just the first announced.
Yeah. Although
concert.
I think some outlets ran with this is the first concert.
Yeah. Well, it's not.
A little bit of a miscommunication there.
Okay.
But certainly, it was an exciting announcement, but it definitely raises the question, when will Billy Joel announce that he's playing the first concert at UBS? Because we all know that's what's going to happen. Because Billy Joel plays everything. It's like Bruce Springsteen or Bon Jovi in New Jersey.
He's Mr. Long Island.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it. I love Billy Joel.
Sure.
He's great.
Yeah.
But he's always performing everywhere.
The piano man.
He performs on the street in Huntington. He performs at the UBS Arena. He closes Nassau Coliseum.
Sure.
He opens Nassau Coliseum.
Sure.
He's everywhere.
Well, look, the most important thing is the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, the Poke Check. Like I said, get it half off starting tomorrow. Roast beef, turkey, ham, Swiss, American, lettuce, tomato, mayo on a hero. Sounds delicious. Haven't had one yet myself. But if that place has one reputation, it's for having delightful food.
Fantastic.
So get over there and check out the menu. And now we're going to pop back to the main screen. Once I find, there's the button. So here we are. That's it for the Hero of the Week. And then the train rolls on here. So you want to take some questions here, Chris? You want to scroll through the chat and take some questions?
By the way, I just want to point out the Bridgeport Sound Tigers opened their season today as well. They did not win.
What was the tally on that
4-1. A 4-1 defeats.
I feel like we're going to hear a lot more of that, which will be depressing because they're only playing 2 teams, right?
Yes, they're playing the Hartford
Imagine
Wolfpack
just losing
and
to the same 2 teams for
Bruins.
50 games or however many they
24
play.
games. 12
Oh,
apiece.
Oh, thank God it's only 24. That's right. You mentioned that on the show previously.
It is pretty ridiculous, but it is very funny.
Hey, look, it's difficult times right now. They don't have the budget that the NHL teams have. And I would say we're lucky enough that we're getting AHL hockey.
They were also impacted by a number of teams dropping out, and not playing.
And did you see what happened in the NWHL?
Yeah, another
That
unfortunate
sucks.
circumstance.
That sucks.
And there was some positive moment. There was a lot of chaos too with the NWHL that had been going on.
Really?
Between
Chaos?
between the Barstool situation that had developed over the course of the couple of days there. Then you had a few teams drop out because of COVID issues, and then obviously the unfortunate circumstance that ended the playoffs altogether for them and canceled the rest of the tournament they were playing up there in what is it, Lake Placid? Lake Placid.
Yes, that's correct.
So I mean, it was great to see that they were getting some exposure, national exposure on NBCSN, which will be going away apparently soon as well next year.
That's some other big news. Where's hockey going to end up? Where's the national broadcast going to go?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. Part of it is that they've been
We're
saying,
all over the place
They'll
here.
move. They'll move the NHL broadcast if the NHL stays with them. Their contract with NBC is up after this year. They'd move them to USA and obviously run some national games.
Oh, that's right, USA. I forgot about that.
On the main Peacock network. And I'm sure they've been hammering home such a strong push for their digital platform.
I feel like USA is the station where all bad television shows go.
Well,
I don't know if I've ever watched a series on USA.
I just know it's the station you go if you want to watch Law and Order reruns. Law and Order SVU reruns on a pretty consistent
Yeah, I think it's just reruns and just shows that nobody's heard of. I hope I'm not offending anybody who's like, my favorite show is on USA, but sorry.
I can't think of too many shows.
I can't
USA.
either.
But so the other
Burn Notice.
The other thought,
Something
Burn
like
Notice
that.
wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I don't know why you're crapping all over Burn Notice. But the other thing is there's been a lot of talk of the NHL expanding, going to a couple different networks.
Ah, okay.
Similar to what?
Maybe get Espen back in the fold?
Yeah, similar to what every other logical thinking
I want
sports
John
league does.
Buccigross covering hockey again. I used to love watching NHL Tonight back when you were a fetus.
I mean, it just makes sense to have these different networks involved. Like you look at what the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, all of these leagues have figured out, we can get more money if we put our product
name of the game.
on different channels. The NHL, for whatever reason, I will never forget this, by the way. This is as an aside. I was sitting next to a fellow reporter in the press box at Madison Square Garden. He was doing an interview with Gary Bettman. It had to have been right before the outdoor games at Yankee Stadium, I want to say.
Okay.
And he was asking this particular reporter, I think it was Dennis Gorman, who was then writing for Metro New York newspapers.
Okay.
Asked Gary about that exact topic, about wouldn't it behoove the NHL to be on multiple networks? And I will never forget this. Gary Bettman goes, he says, we are on multiple networks. He says, we're on, I forget if it was NBCSN at that point or NBC Sports Center. He said, we're on NBC and we're on NBCSN. And
Gary.
But it was that Gary thing.
That's
You're like,
Gary.
He's saying it, but there's no way he believes it. But
Right.
but now you have
He's been notorious.
you
for
have
that.
to imagine that the NHL is wising up. They look at what every other logical thinking, profitable sports league has done in this country.
I feel like the tone when they were out of their previous contract, which I guess was with ESPN and whatnot, right, way back, and then when they ended up with NBC, it was almost kind of like they were kind of in a desperate situation, just like happy to get NBC. Because remember, they were on OLN, they were on Outdoor Life Network. Then it became Versus,
Right.
and then that became essentially.
But that was always
NBC Sports.
owned. From my recollection, that was always owned by NBC.
Okay, fair
It was
enough.
always an NBC network.
But like, I mean, think about that.
But
They
yeah, the program was terrible. Versus was OLN
Versus
was
was
embarrassing.
better.
Versus was better, and then
Right.
you had an actual network.
Right. So I hope that they're just not in the same position where, again, like it just seemed like they were just desperate to end up anywhere at that point back then. Hopefully they've built up more of a, more clout or whatever with the networks out there so that they can end up on a network that doesn't sound ridiculous.
Well, Fox reportedly is interested in getting back in covering hockey. ESPN is interested in being in the conversation. So that's a
Okay.
positive sign for the league and going forward and getting its product out there in the world a little bit. So that's a good sign. But we do have some questions now.
Let's
Sean.
do it.
We've bantered enough.
we
vamped
have
enough.
bantered quite a bit.
We've filibustered, if you will.
Nice job, buddy. Nice job.
So let's go to our first question here from Mr. VH27.
Okay.
I believe that's how you say his username. He asked us, what will it take for the NHL to change the point system? How are some games worth 2 points while others are 3? Especially frustrating this season.
They seem pretty stubborn about the
we were
current point system.
Just talking about how the NHL does things and then
Yeah.
they do other things where you're scratching your head. This is one of those
This
things
has
where you're
come up,
scratching your heads.
and there's been a lot of talk about this over the years. You've even had like, some of the I guess the bigger names out there, like LeBron. I think he did a whole piece on it a while back on how he would change things with the point system, and I think there's definitely some merit to that. I don't think the current situation is perfect, and I am very anti-shootout. Like I am ready to I've been ready to get rid of the shootout. Now, I know that they want wins and losses, and I know that they want entertainment. We're just talking about how they're going to get their ticket onto another network,
It's
right?
all about parity.
It's about parity, but it's also about entertainment and the casual fan. Look, for the diehard, I think a lot of people would be on board with me. Like, they don't want shootouts. It's not hockey.
Yeah.
It's not hockey. And then you can go even further and say, is 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 even hockey? It's more hockey than a shootout.
Right.
You know? So there's been a lot of concessions made by the league to get this parity, because you're right. That's a big part of it too. As much as fans like Mr. KV, I'm sorry if I'm
Mr. VH
27, has to say about, hating the point system, the league loves it. They love the fact, and the teams do too, that they all get bunched together from the beginning of the season almost through the end. Because long gone are the days where you knew at least 75% of the teams that were making the playoffs before the puck even dropped. And then when the puck dropped 5 to 10 games in, 80% you knew who was going to be in the playoffs, because you just had the better teams would just rise to the top, and those lesser teams were quick to fall to the bottom because they didn't have those loser points. They weren't hanging on for the overtime loss. They weren't hanging on for the shootout where they could scrap out a win you wouldn't expect, right? I mean, imagine the Ottawa Senators, right? They're considered one of the worst teams in the league. And them just hanging on to get to overtime, to get through overtime, and then they end up getting a win against the Colorado Avalanche because they get more goals out of 3 than the Avalanche do. They didn't earn that on the ice. It was a skills competition, right? But that's what helps keep these teams more bunched together, and that's what gets these teams getting more money at the gate, more tickets later into the season when you start hitting January, February, March, because they still think their team has a shot. Whether or not they ultimately make it or not, if they're still looking at the standings, and Islander fans can attest to this, early 2010s and whatnot, there's been some, pretty bad years and not too distant history here where, you're still convincing yourself that they got a shot, even though they have 10 less regulation wins. They're only 5 points out of a spot, and there's 30 games left in the season. If they just string together some wins, they can get back in. So you're still going to the arena because you're going in with that hope, and they want that. So I don't see this point situation changing ever.
Well said, Sean.
Honestly.
Well said. Very, very articulate point there.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our next question from our user by the name of Anti-Threat. Does Sorokin play a game in the AHL this season? Over under Schneider, that's Corey Schneider, starts 3 games this year. He wrote season. I changed it. I don't want to use season twice in 2 sentences back to back.
What a writer you are.
It's the writer thing in me.
Yeah.
But
Don't take any offense to it.
Yeah, no. That's me being weird and neurotic.
Well, you are weird and neurotic. So let's see. I do not think that Sorokin plays a game in the AHL. And I think the only way that happens if his game just tanks and Lou is like, listen, you need some time down there. I don't think that happens. I think he's going to be up at the club all season, barring any injuries. As far as Schneider goes, 3 games?
Yeah.
I think that...
No, he says over under 3 games.
Over under, I'm going starting or just being on the bench?
He said over under starts 3 games.
Starting, I'm going to go with the under.
Yeah, 0. My under would be 0.
Yeah,
I'm taking the under.
I think
0.
the only way he starts is if somebody's hurt. Is if Varley or Sorokin get hurt and there's a back-to-back situation or something like that, or just one of them have a bad game.
Well,
I don't think Schneider's going to start.
If it's Varlamov that gets hurt, then I think my over under 3 is kind
certainly
of
increases his chances.
It increases. I think you see him more, but I think that's the only way you see that come to fruition. Even you look at when Varlamov did kind of get hurt and he wasn't able to back up Sorokin a couple times. That it was Corey Schneider out there, so it's an option, I guess you could say. It's there, but it's only happening.
It is an option.
It's only happening really if it comes down to dire circumstances.
By the way, Mr. VH27 said he's going to work on his username
His
for us.
username is fine. It's just
You're illiterate.
No, I said his username correctly.
No, it was your fault.
No, you were like, was it Mr. PH or Mr. Whatever,
Okay,
whatever
all right.
you sound
Well,
like?
we apologize.
Yeah.
We apologize.
Sean apologizes for messing up your name, but
Sure.
but to the question though,
Yeah.
I agree. Sorokin's not going to the AHL. I can't imagine at this point.
No. Did you
it's
say
just-
KHL?
No, I said AHL.
Oh, sorry. Old ears. AHL. Go on.
And he's not
Proceed.
going to the KHL. If I
Definitely
really
not going
clarify
there. He
there.
better not go there.
But I don't see him going to the AHL this season because he's going to get reps at the NHL level, and this is where he wants to be. This is where the Islanders want him, and he's
Yeah.
been getting better. I think people
has.
look at the way he plays, and you'll see That first game was ugly. You'll never never see another performance like that. But that last start that he got in Philadelphia, he played very well enough to give the Islanders a chance to win. And it was the team in front of him that didn't give him the chance to win.
Though I am glad this came up because I did want to mention this at some point. I do think the scouting report on Sorokin is shoot high.
Oh, 100%.
And what's interesting...
And get him to move. Force him
that's
to make
any
that.
Goalie, but yeah.
No, but you can tell he's still a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
On certain
He's
points.
gotten better. He's now made those saves that he didn't.
He's gotten a lot better. But you're right. But you're right there. But
because he's letting up a lot over his shoulders. And the funny thing about that was...
because he's still playing pretty deep in his net.
Well, this is the thing. I noticed that, and I was like, let me see how tall this guy is. Because I was like, wow. I actually said to myself, I was like, oh, man, they're really taking advantage of the fact that this guy's short. Like, I'm thinking I'm going to look, and he's like 5'9", 5'10". And I went and looked, and he's 6'2", 6'3". So, to your point, the guy's playing deep into his net, and it turns out that Arthur Staple actually noted on this too, was that they're putting goals in up high on this guy.
Yeah.
And again, I was kind of floored. I was like, wow, he must be a really short dude, and he's not. He plays small. And I think that's something that Mitch Korn and Piero Greco are probably going to be working on.
Yeah, I mean,
with him to play bigger in the net. As
Staple
also pointed out in his piece.
You see him at practice a lot, and there's a lot of one-on-one work still going on with him and some of the goaltending coaches. The practice that I've been able to get down to at the very least. But and something that Anti-Threat did note in just now in the chat that his angles are off, and that's certainly true too. A lot of his angles, not a lot, but some of his angles have been off when he's been in the net as well. We do have another question.
What else you got?
From T_Boyle 13. That's T_Boyle 13. I don't know why I repeated it like it's a phone number we're giving out, but he's asking us.
Love it.
That if we see the NHL pausing. I don't think he really finished his thought. He just said pausing.
Do we see the NHL pausing?
Yeah. Do we see the NHL pausing? Pausing the season.
If it gets out of hand, I mean, what other choice are they going to have? But I don't think they're going. Look, you look at what they did with Jersey, right? And having them play that game that they probably shouldn't have played. I don't think their mindset is in pause mode, but hopefully that kind of woke them up and said, all right, we got to handle this a little bit better.
I hope we don't see the NHL.
None of us want to see it pause.
But I'm not confident to say for sure that the NHL won't have to pause because things have gotten out of hand. They clearly have shown that while they're trying, I don't want to say that they're Christian, not trying. But
I am very surprised at the number of cases that we're seeing.
I'm not. I am and I'm not. I am and I'm not. I am because it's and this is purely from an Islander perspective that everyone was so conscientious of what's going on and the need to follow these protocols. At the same time,
well, yes, we said as much. We said that now that they're out of the bubble situation, it's going to be much more difficult.
Right, but I mean as a team. I mean we're so singularly focused on the Islanders. What kind of gets lost is there are 30 other teams when they're not playing the Islanders,
and that's a lot of human beings.
That.
Yes,
and you saw it with Washington and Ovechkin and some of the other players there going and having a COVID party. The COVID.
Oh,
boys.
You're okay with that now?
Well, because I wasn't okay with it because of anything.
Honestly, you don't get to censor anything on the show. After calling Brian Compton a trash person on the air a couple of weeks ago, you don't get to censor anything else in this show, okay? By the way, Brian, we're still sorry.
One of us is sorry.
Bastard.
I got to triple down if I have. That's the way you're doing.
So go ahead.
What I was saying, you had these guys doing, hanging out in the locker room, breaking the protocols, basically. And then I think you had Ovechkin's girlfriend or wife go on social media.
She had some things to say.
And had some things to say.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
That's her right.
Defend your man.
More power to her. But not a great look if you're Ovechkin. Right. But that's the point. You have other teams that have to follow these protocols too. And as Scott Mayfield has said on a number of times before the season started, and very articulately, I should add, that you can't control. You don't know what these other guys are doing. You don't know what these other teams are doing when you're walking into their ring. So the onus is on the teams to be responsible, and
literally everyone involved.
Islanders I'd say have been doing a fantastic job of doing that. They've been very
except for Josh Bailey when he went out to that club.
Well, that's obviously not the story that
I
happened.
made that up. That's not true.
Josh Bailey's
or did he?
Josh Bailey's son's teacher had tested positive, and then there was concern that Josh Bailey's son.
He went to the club.
I mean,
he went club.
You can make that joke, but what club on Long Island is open? If you know, let us know because I'll be shocked. And we do have another question from Mr. VH27. He says, one more question. How much longer do we have to wait for Tony to be able to cameo on Twitch. We're working on that.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Yeah. We'll make that happen.
That's certainly in the works.
Yeah, well, I think Tony's actually got a new podcast himself. I think he's branching off into the entertainment world, the comic book and movie world.
Oh, that's
I think
Tony.
I saw
Tony's
something.
alley.
So I don't know if he's going to have time for us, folks, but we'll try to get him back on. Sure, absolutely. We'll find out how it feels to be Tony Stabile.
Yeah, it's certainly right now it'd be interesting to get a pulse of what the Islanders fan base is feeling because.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, we get
We're literally getting it right now.
We get a little post through the Twitch. We get a little post through the Twitter.
Sure.
Which is
what else? What else you got? There's probably some you could scroll up to too. That came early on.
We'll talk and I'll look here.
No problem. So there's not going to be a pause. The NHL might be moving to another network.
There was a lot of positive comments from Mollie. Just unrelated.
She did a great job.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
Joey Pickles was a big fan.
Joey Pickles, sure. I actually think he had a question up at the top of the show, if I remember. I know he came in early, so maybe you can find a question from him.
With all this one with all the pauses due to COVID, how will they make up all the games? I fear the pause will continue throughout the season. The pauses will continue after the season. I'm 100% with Joey. Their pauses will continue throughout the season. There's no question. And I think that's the way the schedule makers built this year's schedule.
Well, I'm mentioning Pierre LeBrun's name again.
A lot of plugs for the Athletic.
Well, I mean, they do great work, Christian.
Arthur Staple, Pierre LeBrun.
They do good work, Christian. I mean,
Charlie,
it's something to aspire to.
No, I'm not saying it's a good or I'm not saying taking a dig. I'm just saying we're giving them a lot of free advertising.
I mean, look, this is what I happen to see, so and it's relevant to what we're talking about. So anyway, Pierre LeBrun had pointed out on Twitter today that, hey, pay attention to the points percentage, kind of like how the season ended last year, because there's a very good chance, folks, that not everybody's going to play 56 games. Right. Because if this keeps happening, because they're only going to delay and postpone these games so long, they're probably going to, hit a threshold where they're like, listen, we can't make up any more of these games. We need the playoffs to start now. I'm sure they already have in the back of their minds what that cutoff is. Are you interrupting me?
Yes, because Joey Pickles made that exact point after he asked that question earlier.
So he answered his own question.
He kind of answered his own question. He says, I think they may be using win percentage to determine playoffs again.
There you go.
So
yeah, if they hit that threshold that we don't know about,
maybe we
but
should
I'm
have
sure
Joey
they
do the show. He's clearly ahead of us on everything.
He might do a better job than you.
Most people do a better job than me.
Thank you. Finally. So
I just broke character. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let's do that again. No, Sean, I'm the best. No one else there does it better than me.
That sounds more like it.
Okay.
Yeah, they probably probably have a
moment
date.
of weakness.
Yeah, well, not surprising. So anyway, they have a magical date. They have a magical date, Christian, that I'm sure that if it gets to that date and they haven't made up the games, they're going to say, listen, points percentage. Sorry, Pittsburgh, you've only played 12 games. Points percentage. Sorry, we're going to have to weigh that,
Right.
Hopefully, imagine if there was just that one team that ends up having to postpone. They only end up playing like 30 games and everybody else plays like 50.
I mean, that would be devastating. I
think
it wouldn't be
just say,
fair.
sorry, you can't make it. Sorry, you're out.
But what if they have a winning record and I feel like that's just, they cross that bridge when they get to it.
Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen, but I kind of hope that happens.
I would be curious to see.
For the chaos.
I would be curious to see if that occurs. How do they figure that out? Because you can't do winning percentage because that number's all skewed. You can't do record because that's still skewed.
Right. If there's like a
point difference,
like a 5-game difference between teams, okay, point percentage. But once you start talking about 7, 10, I don't think it's going to get that high. But but look, we would think that they have hired very smart people to think about all these things and put contingency plans into place.
Right.
And I imagine that they will sort it out.
Yes. I mean, some people were kind of noting earlier in the show in the chat.
Yeah.
The Islanders do have a couple. I think it was Anti-Threat who noted the Isles have 2 4-day breaks in March, so there's the opportunity to make those games up.
Kind of like snow days.
Yes.
Just days off down the road.
We wouldn't know what snow days are anymore. Kids don't get those.
Is that right? Because they just do homeschooling.
Yeah, it's all virtual learning.
That's a shame. We used to live for snow days, man. Yeah. Oh well. Sucks for them. Sorry.
But you're right. But that's a great analogy, Sean. I'm complimenting you a lot. I'm really breaking character.
See? It was only a matter of time.
Maybe I just missed you from last show.
Wow. Oh, wow. Now we're really getting crazy. I think I might be blushing a little bit. Oh, my goodness. No, I'm not. So you got any more there? Scrolling through? Any more?
Joey Pickles did ask a follow-up expanded playoff. field? Question mark.
If all goes
This is
according
a question
to
mark.
plan A or B, I would say no. I would say they want just 4 teams out of each division.
Well, there are some teams that would like that again.
Of course.
There are a few teams that
Of
would like that
course.
again.
It's all about the monies, baby.
Yes, but in fairness, though, Commissioner Gary Bettman didn't seem too keen on continuing that trend after that last year.
No, they said it was a one-and-done thing.
Yeah.
But, you know,
But if there's enough pushback from the owners,
if they got to get creative due to some unforeseen circumstances, they will. Again, contingency plans. I'm sure they're there. But, no, I don't think there's going to be an expanded playoff unless shite just really hits the fan. What else you got?
No. I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair analysis of the situation in that regard.
Thank you.
That being said,
Yeah.
there's always an opportunity. Like I was saying, there's a few owners, there's a few coaches, there's a few GMs that like the expanded playoff field, and there certainly was a lot of momentum for that.
Garth Snow wanted an expanded playoff field back in the day, if you remember.
Garth-
He was lobbying for it. Him and Charles Wong were lobbying for
Garth
that.
Snow wanted a 3-headed goalie rotation, so I mean, take those suggestions as you will.
Okay, fair enough.
But as far as our questions go, that's just about it.
That's just about it.
Yes.
Okay, well, we want to thank you all for the live Q&A. We hope you guys enjoyed it. And I think the only thing we didn't do was look ahead, so we could just look. They have
Oh, we looked ahead with Molly, and
yeah, a little bit. I'm saying the week. They got tomorrow against the Pens. They got the Rangers Monday. Then they got the Pens again on Thursday, and then they got Boston next Saturday. And 3 out of 4 of those games are at home. The one road game is at the Garden Monday.
which is really not a road game, especially in this circumstance.
Right. They can hop on the bus.
Yes.
They can hop on the bus or the train.
No, they take the bus.
They'll hop on the bus.
They take the bus.
So yeah, I guess that's pretty much
There's
it.
not a Long Island Railroad car showing up to Penn Station with the Islanders in it.
What's that?
I said there's not a Long Island Railroad car, like a car on a Long Island Railroad train with the Islanders in it just popping off at Penn Station. On
Why
the
not?
day.
Why not? Let's make that happen.
They'll take the bus.
Okay. they'll
Although
take the
they
bus.
did, obviously, they did famously do that to open up the training camp a couple of years ago at Barclays Center. I don't know if you remember that. They had piled everyone, the media, the team, coaching staff, everyone. This is when they were moving into Barclays Center. I want to say it was 2014. It was right after the year they went to the playoffs for the first time in 7 years, in 2013, the lockout shortened season. So it was after that.
Right.
They piled everyone
Yes.
onto train cars
Yes.
at was it Mineola? It was Garden City train station. They took
Okay.
the train
Okay.
and went with the team. They were trying to show off how easy it was to get to Barclays Center, and as I'm sure many Islander fans know, it's very easy to get to Barclays Center. But
And the
you
sight lines, man, just
have to
tremendous.
transfer, and
Yeah.
that's such a fascinating point in history with
It-
this team.
This-
Among
look,
many.
Again, Nick Hirschon calling you out here. I mean, that book story is just waiting to be written. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole saga between are they going to play at the Coliseum, playing at Barclays, and then I've said it. I believe I said it here with you on the show. I know I said it with Tony on the show previously. The fact that they even landed at UBS Arena is just like 1 in a million. Like that's Doctor Strange Avengers Endgame saying the 1 in 14 million chance of it happened. Like this is the one chance of victory where they actually ended up with a brand new arena on Long Island because all the dominoes that had to fall for that to happen is just absolutely insane between the lighthouse back and forth.
Right. I mean, there's a whole. We could literally do 3 straight shows on the
Oh, hell
entire
yeah.
drama of the Nassau Coliseum Islanders hunt for a new arena.
No, that book needs to be written. And I think Hirschon actually did a book on the Coliseum. He did that before.
It was
Fish
a
Sticks.
picture. It was not a picture book like a kid's picture book, but it was Images of America book. That kind
There
of
you
the
go.
history of
Yeah,
the arena,
so
and it
there
did
you go.
include at the time that there was still hope for the Lighthouse Project, so it did include that at the end.
Yeah.
Which is,
and then the whole the refurbishing they were trying to do. Remember that? They were trying to redo the arena. That fell to the vote. Remember the vote
that
back
was-
in
yeah, the
2011?
referendum.
The referendum.
Referendum.
Yeah, I mean, what a ridiculous saga.
That
It's
was
all
very
over
interesting.
soon. It's all over soon. In 8 months. 8 months. And we get the weekend, too.
Nice. We do have one last minute question.
Yeah, let's do it. It's Friday night.
T-Boyle 13 threw this at us last minute. We're going on almost 2 hours now. We're over
This is a marathon
we're
sesh.
over an hour and a half.
And
into the
again,
show.
thanks for hanging with us, guys. Really appreciate it.
So T-Boyle, I don't know how serious this question is. So let's take it with
Hey,
take
it's
it
a
with that in
question.
mind.
We'll field it.
He goes, if Ovi is available, do the Islanders go after him in free agency this summer?
Well, I mean, we're wondering if they're going to go after anybody.
Yeah, well,
just
they
because
there's
of the cap
a
constraints.
massive cap issue here.
But assuming Lou can, jump through some hoops, which he's proven he can in, teams past that he's been with, and now we saw what happened with Johnny Boychuk. I mean, I don't know if Johnny Boychuk was planning on retiring this year. I'm not trying to stir up any, conspiracy theories or anything like that, but he is retired. He's not playing hockey.
Retired.
He's not playing hockey. He's on LTIR.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if the $5.5 million that Andrew Ladd makes currently finds a way to disappear off of the cap next year, however that may be, then why wouldn't they look at Alexander Ovechkin? He's got experience with Barry Trotz. He likes Barry Trotz. I'm sure he'll be happy to play at a brand new arena with a brand new practice facility.
He does love the Nassau Coliseum.
That's right. He did say that.
Yeah, he does genuinely
and
love Nassau.
if you've been paying attention.
So does Jaromir Jagr, who also has had a number of big goals at the Nassau Coliseum in his career.
A lot of Metro Division stars have a lot of goals at the Nassau Coliseum. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. Sorry. It's true. I mean, I know Crosby's numbers are ridiculous, too. Probably Malkin's. You see where I'm going with this.
No, I understand the point.
So, back to the question. I mean, why not? If the cap space is there, I don't know if a 30-something Ovechkin's going to be the first target. If they have the ability to have a target, but I mean, you'd be silly not to at least look at it, kick tires, if you will, as Garth Snow used to like to do.
It's an interesting, right. Every year you wait for that
Kicking
trade.
tires, yeah.
Yeah, Garth kicked tires on this guy. He kicked tires on that guy.
He deflated each and every one of them. But, you don't have to cover the mic to laugh. You can laugh at that. It's true. It's true.
No, I was going to sneeze. So
okay. Okay.
But I totally lost what I was about to say.
Because I'm hilarious.
That was very funny. That was very funny. I'm being very nice today.
You are. You are.
It's a joy to be with you again, Sean.
Wow.
Nice
Are you on painkillers or something? Like, what's going on here?
No, I just feel like I feel
you're having fun.
No,
it's okay. You're having fun. You're having fun. It's cool.
We were talking about Alex Ovechkin. I'm trying to vamp for figure out what the heck I was trying to say.
You're at a total loss.
I don't know.
We were talking about whether or not they'd go after him in the offseason. And, we said maybe.
You kick tires.
We gave a firm maybe. Yeah.
You kick tires.
Deflating of the tires.
You deflate tires, and I think that's what you do. I don't know. I mean, Ovechkin is still a talented player, even...
Yeah.
What would he be, 36?
Guy still put up 40 goals last year, didn't he?
How old would Ovechkin be if he...
37?
37?
Nah, no, he's not 37. He's early 30s, I think.
Early 30s.
Okay. Early
so
30s.
then I think that's still worth an investment at the very least. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy puts up power play goals like
But
it's
I
going
think-
out of business,
I
and it's
think-
something the Islanders don't do a lot
I
of.
think he's lower on the list, maybe, But who knows? Lou and Barry like the veterans, so you never know. Who's going to turn down?
35. I was off by 2 years.
Okay. All right. A little older than I thought, but eventually he's going to...
How old are you?
You know how old I am.
I actually don't. I forget.
I'm older than him. I'm older than Alexander Ovechkin.
Gotcha. Okay. So like 50?
Yeah, give or take 12 years. But yeah.
All right. But yeah, so I don't know if that's the first player they're going after. I also don't know how realistic of an option that would be at the end of the day, considering the circumstances.
And they have a lot more to worry about.
Oh, yeah. That's
before then,
Yeah.
A lot can happen between now and then. There's still a trade deadline between now and then. There's a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that does it for the questions.
Yeah, that's about it for our questions. We appreciate everyone who sent us them
Yeah.
tonight in the chat, especially being a Friday. There
Yes.
are so many other things you could be doing on a Friday night, so we appreciate everyone who had fun with us in
Could
the
watch
chat.
WandaVision.
Watched us. Well, you can still watch WandaVision.
You still
after we're
can.
done.
It's streaming. That's the beauty of streaming. You can watch it whenever you want.
Just like us.
There you go, buddy.
Wow, look at that.
Just like Hockey Night in New York. Anytime, 24/7, 365. Always available. Good God. Good God. All right. Let's wrap it up here. Cue the music. There it is. So, folks, want to send a big thanks out to Mollie Walker of the New York Post for joining us. Great spot from her. Can't wait to have her on again. Huge thanks to our sponsors, Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Head on over for great food, fantastic service, even better people. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com for great selections and hockey-themed heroes. And don't forget, the Poke Check will be half price from now through next Sunday. A huge thanks to Tide Technology, a voice over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. Check them out at TideTechnology.com for all your telecom needs, or give them a call at 516-856-7800 and get 3 free months of service. Give them a call. And of course, once again, a big thanks to you guys for hanging out with us live. And who's hanging out with us not live? Twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And your favorite podcast providers and HockeyNightNY.com. We're all over the place. You can find us wherever you want. And of course, if you enjoy the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends all about us. Tell your friends to follow us on Twitch so they get notified and they never miss a live show here. Remember to follow us on social media at HockeyNightNY. Follow Christian at C_Arnold01. Follow myself at Shawnee Hockey. Follow the show at HockeyNightNY on all social media platforms. For Christian Arnold, my name is Sean Cuthbert. Enjoy the Islander game tomorrow. Enjoy the Super Bowl Sunday. And we'll be back at our regularly scheduled time next Sunday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take care, everybody.